Today we're talking about Deathrays, carrots, and how Great Britain's kind of sort of responsible for the creation of Bugs Bunny. Okay, look, if you don't know, pretty much every country involved in World War II is committed to spending a lot of time, money, and effort to coming up with new and creative ways to unalive one another. And early on, Team Bad Guy would invest a lot of time and effort to coming up with a death ray, because that's not the most cliche bad guy thing to do ever. You know what, actually, I take that back. That's probably where the cliche comes from. Anyways, Great Britain, aka the USB, would find out about this pretty early on and proceed to do what the USB does best. They stole it. I mean, tactically acquired it. You know what, let's just be honest. Historically speaking, the USB treats anything of historical or cultural significance the same way a tweaker treats a catalytic converter. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying it happened. I mean, let's face it. If grandma passes away and leaves you a nice vase, there is a greater than 0% chance that Britain's gonna try to come take it. Anyway, so Britain ends up developing a death ray and theirs doesn't work and neither do the bad guys. But what Britain figures out is that if you turn the death ray down, you can actually use it to track airplanes while they're in flight. This would lead to the invention of the first radar. They then proceeded to equip radar up and down their entire coastline. That way, anytime the enemy bombers approached, they had enough time to scramble their own fighting planes to go and stop the bombing run. And this actually worked really well right up until it didn't. Eventually, the enemy figured out that if they did the bombings at night, they were far more effective. This is because the British airplanes didn't actually have a radar inside of them, so once they were in the air, they were unable to locate the bombers at night. Because of the success of these bombing raids, two things happened. One, London imposed a blackout, meaning at night, no one was supposed to have lights on to make it harder for the bombers to actually see where the city was. And two, they would develop the AI radar, which stands for aerial interception. And this would be the first radar that was actually inside of a fighter plane. Once the Royal Air Force pilots had onboard radar, they began fucking up the enemy bombing runs so bad that people began asking questions. I mean, for example, they had guys like John Cat Eyes Cunningham, who was a fighter ace credited with downing 20 enemy bombers, 19 of which were at night. Do you understand how insane that is? You only have to down 5 enemy aircrafts to become an ace. This guy did more than 3 times that, and it was in the fucking dark. And when people start asking questions about how that was humanly possible, you want to know what the official British government answer was? He eats a lot of carrots so he can see good at night. Could you imagine getting your entire Air Force's ass beat by like one dude and the official response is he ate his fruits and vegetables? Like the British Army's got the Lee Enfield rifle, but the Royal Air Force has the Lee N carrot. And the craziest part about this whole thing is everyone actually believed it. You see, World War II, everybody was short on a lot of different resources. Britain in particular was short on food. But one thing they had an abundance of was carrots. So they started telling everybody that their war heroes were eating a bunch of carrots and it helped them see better at night, which coincidentally was really beneficial because London and other cities along the coast were having blackouts every night so they couldn't see at night. Realizing how incredibly convenient this lie was, Britain launched an enormous propaganda campaign. They began making up all kinds of crazy carrot recipes and putting them in the newspapers. They even began making cartoons trying to inspire children to eat more carrots. A bandwagon that even America hopped on, creating maybe the most iconic cartoon character of all time, Bugs Bunny. Yeah, you remember being at the grocery store trying to convince your mom to buy those big carrots so you could go, what's up, Doc? Just like Bugs Bunny on TV? Congratulations, that's probably the first time you fell for propaganda and it won't be the last. Buh! I didn't fall for propaganda because carrots actually are good for your eyes. Buh! Yes, carrots have vitamin A and beta carotene in it, which are good to maintain your current eye health. Eating a bunch of carrots will not give you supervision. Kind of like how going on a diet might make you lighter, but going on a really intense diet isn't going to make you fucking float. See how that works? Anyways, the point I'm trying to get across is that this propaganda campaign was extremely successful. Not only did it work on the British and American civilian population, but it worked on the enemy as well. Allegedly, there was accounts that the bad guys' leadership started forcing their pilots to eat carrots to the point that they turned orange. And now, to be intellectually honest, I do have to tell you that there are a lot of historians that do not believe that because there wasn't any actual documentation. However, I think to some extent they fell for the propaganda, considering that it is still a worldwide misconception that carrots give you night vision. And it's also worth considering even if the bad guys didn't fall for the propaganda, it was still a humongous morale boost to the Royal Air Force. I mean, think about how happy you would be if you were a pilot with fancy new top secret radar technology and you were knocking down enemy planes left and right, and you knew that the enemies thought it was because you were using carrots as a performance enhancing drug. That shit would be fucking hilarious. You know for a fact those pilots were feeding into it too. Painting carrots and shit on the side of their plane for every enemy plane they downed. Telling each other stories in the chow hall like, guys, no shit, there I was. I pulled up behind this bomber and he hadn't seen me yet. And I wanted to find out if these guys were actually orange. So I pulled up next to him and I wanted to look inside of that phallic indentation. I mean penis perforation. I mean cockpit. Sorry. So I pulled up next to him, took a look in this cockpit, and this motherfucker is bright orange. We made direct eye contact and his jaw falls into his lap and I take a big bite out of a carrot right before I drop back behind him and shoot him down. So yeah, there you have it. The epic saga of how Great Britain failed at making a death ray only to accidentally create radar, subsequently revolutionizing warfare for the rest of forever. And then in order to cover it up, they convinced the entire planet that carrots somehow gave you night vision. Best way to support the channel is to go to thefatelectrician.com and buy yourself some merch. Quack bang, out.